This show today is a special Christmas and New Year special where we're going to be talking about depression and loneliness. Just going to introduce you one of my co-hosts.
Sasrikal ji, I'm Gurjit from Docsok, joining Baji here.
Yep, so Gurjit from Sukta will be working with us. We've got two fantastic people today as our guests. So they're called Kafi Changal. The first person I'm going to introduce to you is someone that, if you don't know him, I don't know what's going on, Mr. Harjap Bansal. He's immigration specialist, TV host, film, movies, you name it, he covers it. Big welcome to you, sir.
Thank you. Sasrikal Saran, Genevieve for the viewers.
And lastly, we've got Mr. Tarek here. He's an entrepreneur, a trauma nurse, a BACP regulated counsellor, managing director, and a trauma specialist. So, big welcome and thank you for coming.
Thank you very much indeed, and nice to be here. Thank you.
So today we'll be talking about depression and loneliness. We'll be opening our lines later on in the show. So if you've got anything to talk about, we can go from there. So, my coach, Gurjit.
Anji.
Loneliness and depression, does that exist in Asian community?
Unfortunately, काफ़ी ये topic चल रहा है तो मेरा ख्याल है काफ़ी लोग time to time suffer with this in their lifetime. हुंदी तो जिथों शुरू हुंदी है I feel गल तो हुंदी छोटी अपने मन च बड़ी हो जाती है कई हादसे भी हुंदे आ लाइफ च जिथों असीं फड़ के बह जन्ने आ तो उत्थों जिद्दां डिप्रैशन सैट्स इन तो असीं सोचदे नहीं भी गाह नूं रास्ता किद्दां फड़ीए किद्दां अपने मोड़ नूं चलीए and unfortunately it does a lot of people do suffer with it ਤਾਂ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਤੇ ਇਹ ਆ ਵੀ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਚੁੱਪ ਕਰਕੇ ਕੋਈ ਸਫਰ ਕਰਦਾ that's the hardest thing to now hear about ਤਾਂ ਹੀ ਤਾਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਅੱਜ ਸ਼ੋਅ ਲਾਇਆ ਵੀ encourage ਕਰੀਏ ਵੀ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਕੋਲ problems ਹੈ how we can help you ਵੀ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਕੋਲ ਦੁੱਖ ਤਕਲੀਫ ਆ how do we move them on
because loneliness is not in just youngsters anymore, in elders over 60s they get stuck, but youngsters nowadays between the age of 18 and 24 are suffering from loneliness because as your holiday season it's a time where everyone's at home, but sometimes you're not at home with people, you are by yourself. If it's you can be with loved ones or we can be without loved ones, and depression, loneliness does kick in, especially in the holiday season. Hajal, thoughts on loneliness and depression specifically in the Asian community? Does it exist, first of all?
Definitely depression. I don't think there's anyone perhaps who's watching who hasn't suffered it at some point. Kaiyan di long term hundi hai, kaiyan di short term hundi hai. But jidda Gurjit ne kiha, it's usually jo banda sochi janda kisi cheez baare, insaan sochi janda, and then you keep on going over it, and it could happen over loneliness. We see it a lot in ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਹੁਣ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਲੜਕੇ ਲੜਕੀਆਂ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਤੋਂ ਆਉਣੀਆਂ ਵਿਆਹ ਹੋ ਕੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਲੈਂਗੁਏਜ ਨਹੀਂ ਆਉਂਦੀ ਇੱਥੇ ਬਾਹਰ ਗੱਡੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਆਉਂਦੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਫਰੈਂਡਸ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦੇ they usually stuck in a house ਚਾਰ ਦੀਵਾਰੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ
ਠੰਡੀ ਕਾਫੀ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਜਾਇਓ ਕਿਤੇ because if you're coming from a warm climate 30 degrees plus and you're down to 2 or 3 degrees
of England ਦਾ ਚਾਹ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਨਾ ਲੈਣਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਠੰਡ ਚ ਪਰ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ then they find it's really hard for women ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ because ਉਹਨਾਂ ਲਈ ਇਹ hard ਹੈ ਇੱਥੇ ਵੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਰੱਖ ਲਓ not just girls who come from abroad but you're brought up in an environment you then get married you're expected then to go to live with your in-laws with different habits you have to adjust it's almost like starting your life all over again for the boy doesn't have to do anything right although to do the same ਉਹਦੀ ਜਰਾਬਾਂ ਉੱਥੇ ਪਈ ਰਹੂਗੀ ਇੱਥੇ ਸੀਗੀਆਂ right and he doesn't have to do anything and that can be a lonely time and you can feel alienated and isolated. Mum's not there anymore, dad's not there anymore to talk to you on a regular basis. You won't see them bump into each other. So I think that it is really prevalent. A lot of it is down to our cultural issues and we don't talk about these things.
Tarek, moving over to you as from a clinical perspective, Samaritans, a leading charity, noticed a big spike in loneliness and depression over the Christmas and New Year's period. For those at home who are not too sure what the definition of loneliness or depression is, do you mind just shedding some light on that?
Sure, no problem. In a way, I find it easier when I'm working with clients is to think about depression as a continuum. Okay, so at one end of depression, if you like, you can say it's what we call low of mood. So you wake up in a bad mood, or you're not very happy, you're not feeling great. And that's kind of a low mood, and that can go all the way through a whole series of behaviours and feelings, right the way through to psychotic episodes. So it's in a way it's a continuum, and it's trying to understand where you are on that continuum, because at the early stages of depression one might feel tired, one might feel unhappy, generally not very well, generally not out of sorts. And actually by feeling like that, at that point you may just need some support, somebody to talk to, some specific counselling maybe. As you go through as you go through the sort of spectrum, you begin to start looking at things like potentially medication that can support you, more deeper counselling, and in some cases psychiatric support if you begin to start showing episodes of psychosis. Now there's also another sort of dimension to depression, which is effectively what we call a reactive depression, where what you would call a natural depression. So for example, as Harjap just mentioned, moving to a new family, a new country, a new life, having to adjust around that may be difficult for people to deal with, and that's fairly obvious because you've got something there that you can actually point at and look at and deal with. Same, for example, if somebody loses their job or a marriage breaks up. The other thing that is more difficult to deal with is what's known as idiopathic depression, where people just become depressed for no apparent reason, and they just begin to get deeper and deeper into a position where they can't even function. And it's at that point where you're looking at things like medications, counselling, etc., and that's slightly more difficult to deal with because you actually don't know what's caused it, and maybe you have to start looking at sort of more specialist counselling techniques, looking back into potential childhood problems that may have actually come to the fore when somebody's in adulthood and actually been unresolved for many years.
And that's where I kind of feel that a lot of clients that I get are holding back because they've got anxiety issues going on, or it's deep rooted, that they've gotten used to it for so many years, they're not even aware that it's a challenge.
Exactly.
And they get to a point where, let's say, they get stuck in a rut, they ਉਹੀ life ਮੋੜ ਕੇ ਕਰੀ ਚਲੋ every day, ਹੈ ਨਾ, ਤਾਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹੀ ਮੋੜ ਕੇ episodes ਆਪਣੀ life ਚ ਮੋੜ ਕੇ ਆਉਂਦੇ ਆ, that we refuse to do anything about them, except ਕਰਦੇ ਰਹਿੰਦੇ ਉੱਦਾਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਕੰਪਲੇਨ ਕਰੀ ਜਾਣੀ ਪਈ, ਹਾਏ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਹੋ ਗਈ, ਹਾਏ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਹੋ ਗਈ।
ਜੀ ਜੋ ਸਾਡੇ ਜੋ ਕਲਚਰ ਵਿੱਚ ਭਾਜੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੱਸਦੇ ਕਿ ਡਿਪਰੈਸ਼ਨ ਅਸੀਂ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਕੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ, ਅਤੇ ਇੰਗਲਿਸ਼ ਦਾ ਲਫ਼ਜ਼ ਹੈਗਾ ਡਿਪਰੈਸ਼ਨ, ਪਰ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਡਿਪਰੈਸ਼ਨ ਕੀ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਜੋ ਬੰਦੇ ਜੋ ਸਾਡੇ ਵਿਊਜ਼ ਦੇਖ ਰਹੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਜੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਡਿਪਰੈਸ਼ਨ ਕਹੀਏ ਉਹ ਤਾਂ ਕਿ ਗੋਰੀ ਦੀ ਚੀਜ਼ ਹੈ, ਲੋਨਲੀਨੈਸ ਗੋਰੀ ਦੀ ਚੀਜ਼ ਹੈ, ਪਰ ਜੇ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਕਲਚਰ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਹ ਕੀ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੈਗਾ?
ਚੱਲ ਗੁਰਜੀਤ ਕੋ ਦੱਸ।
I call it, ਜਦ ਭਾਵੇਂ ਇਕੱਠੇ ਵੀ ਸਾਰੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ, you know, we all get together, ਤਾਂ ਫਿਰ ਵੀ ਕਦੇ ਕਦੇ ਕੋਈ ਬੰਦਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਜਾਂ ਤੀਵੀਂ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਆ ਉਸ ਕਮਰੇ 'ਚ, ਉਹ ਆਪਣੇ ਆਪ ਨੂੰ ਦੇਖਦਾ ਭਾਵੇਂ ਲੱਖ ਦੁਨੀਆ 'ਚ ਬੈਠੇ, ਜਦੋਂ ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰੇ ਵੀ ਜਾਇਦਾ ਲੱਖ ਦੁਨੀਆ 'ਚ ਬੈਠੇ ਆ, ਵੀ ਜਦ ਉਸ ਬੰਦਾ ਨਾ ਫੀਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ ਆਪਣੇ ਆਪ ਨੂੰ ਮੈਂ ਇਕੱਲਾ ਆ, ਮੇਰੇ ਕੋਲ ਕੋਈ ਕਿਸੇ ਕੋਲ ਹੈ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੋਈ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰਨ ਨੂੰ, ਕੁਛ ਦੱਸਣ ਨੂੰ। And as I always say, a problem shared is a problem halved, but that's not enough. What we really want is when we share our problems is to be able to resolve our problems, and that's where I think when people get knocked down and saying, oh, it's nothing, to you it's nothing, but to somebody else it is a big deal.
जो पाजी साड़ी कम्युनिटी विच आ गए एक बंदे साथ जो सारे को दुख होए ऐसे किसी और ने जाके दसे ना वो चाह गला वध के करदा है।
साडी कम्युनिटी चाहिए है कि देखो लोग की कहोगे, है ना, that's the biggest one of the illnesses in our community. ਲੋਕ ਕੀ ਹੋਊਗਾ, ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹ ਤੋਂ ਹੀ ਡਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੂੰ ਆਪਣੀ ਗੱਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਦੱਸਣੀ, ਸਭ ਕੁਝ ਅਸੀਂ ਚੁੱਪ ਚੁਪੀਤੇ ਰੱਖਣਾ ਆ, ਜੋ ਕੋਈ ਵੀ ਇਸ਼ੂਜ਼ ਹੋਵੇ we don't talk about them in our community, we don't talk about these things in our place of worship, we don't talk about them in congregation, we hardly talk about them on TV, ਕਿਉਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਇਹੀ ਸੋਚਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਜੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਗੱਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੀਤੀ ਤਾਂ ਸ਼ਾਇਦ ਉਹ ਹਟ ਜੂਗਾ, won't be there, we won't identify it, rather than ਕਿ admit ਕਿ ਹਾਂ ਵੀ ਪ੍ਰੋਬਲਮ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ, ਇਹਦਾ ਸੋਲੂਸ਼ਨ ਕੀ ਹੈ, ਇਹਨੂੰ ਲੱਭੋ। ਬਿਮਾਰੀ ਤਾਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਤਾਂ ਸੋਲਵ ਕਰ ਸਕੋਗੇ ਜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਐਡਮਿਟ ਕਰੋਗੇ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਬਿਮਾਰ ਆ, ਜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ if you're not going to admit that I'm ill or there's a problem, then you're not going to end up solving it.
But study community which and Tarek please interject if you know, in the Asian community or the BME community, why aren't we so open to talk about mental health issues or talk about certain things as depression and loneliness? Why are we so scared? What's the reason behind it?
It's a very, very complex question, actually. I don't think there's one specific answer. I think there's a whole different range of answers around this. And the obvious ones are culture, but there's also things like language. And I think you've tried to say something around what is the word in Punjabi for depression. And actually, the conclusion is it doesn't sound like there is a very satisfying definition of it. So actually, knowing you're depressed is actually the beginning of solving it, or beginning of the healing process, but it's actually knowing you're depressed in the first place. So sometimes I think you say like, oh you'll just get over it, or man up, or whatever the phrase is, and I think sometimes you go, oh yeah, you can't really be depressed about stuff, and actually it is just recognizing where you are in that in that process. So I think there's an element of that. I think there's also something around different cultures just don't want to talk about stuff like that. But I don't know. That's perhaps my colleagues can shed more light on this, really.
It comes down to different circumstances. On just, you know, when a lady gives birth, you know, we hear about postnatal depression and we think, what was that?
Yeah.
You know, when the children leave the home
Yeah.
and it's just the mum and dad, elderly mum and dad left at home, they're lonely.
Yeah.
You know, they wait for when their grandchildren come around. They wait to see the guardiane on there. So does that define as loneliness? So there are, unfortunately, stages in your life where these things will naturally happen, and it's about having the right network around you and being able to talk about it to the right people to get help. But like I said, like I said, we don't talk about it for the wrong reasons, unfortunately.
Over 200,000 people in the UK, older generation, will spend at least one day over the Christmas New Year's period by themselves. It's a huge stat, and I'm not breaking down to the Asian or the non-Asian community, but Baji, just coming back to you in terms of the older generation and over this Christmas period and New Year's period, just sheds light how difficult it can be for some of them in our communities. It could be for perhaps days on end.
But it's really hard for the elderly people. Or I see it, and the circumstances which they came in, they weren't great. No one was a billionaire who came here. Everyone came from poor backgrounds, poor farming family backgrounds, or manual labour backgrounds. They then worked here for adversity, you know, and they did their best to get their kids a good education and, you know, a good way of life. But it's essential to the Asian community is this topic and the whole idea of family, of joint family, right? So we come from a group of forefathers, you know, or our elders. They've always stayed in joint families for hundreds of generations. I can go back probably 300 generations of mine, all stayed in a joint family, and you're expected to do the same. So it's like the lineage, you're expected to do the same. We have a culture where the eldest son is supposed to stay with the parents. Not so nowadays, but traditionally that's what it was. The youngest can go and do their own thing, and, you know, it's okay if the youngest move out. But today we're finding that it's hard to have two families under one roof. And then when you've got another dynamic of like a daughter-in-law or a son-in-law coming in, and then or kids coming in, and perhaps not everyone getting along with each other, then you have to live separately. Now, ਬੰਦਾ ਸੋਚਦਾ ਰਹਿੰਦਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਦੇਖੋ ਮੈਂ ਤਾਂ ਇਕੱਲਾ ਹੀ ਰਹਿ ਗਿਆ, ਮੈਂ ਨਿਆਣਿਆਂ ਲਈ ਸਾਰਾ ਕੁਝ ਕੀਤਾ, ਕੁਰਬਾਨ ਕੀਤਾ, ਔਰ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਇਕੱਲਾ ਹੀ ਛੱਡਤਾ, ਮੈਨੂੰ ਤਾਂ ਫੋਨ ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਦੇ, ਇੱਕ ਵਾਰੀ ਹਫ਼ਤੇ ਦਾ ਫੋਨ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ,
ਫੋਨ ਕਿ ਟੈਕਸਟ ਮੈਸੇਜ ਆਉਂਦੇ ਆ,
WhatsApp ਹੀ ਆਉਂਦਾ ਹੁਣ, ਉਹ ਵਿਚਾਰੇ ਹੁਣ ਸਿਆਣੇ ਵੀ WhatsApp ਤੇ ਲੱਗੇ ਹੋਈ ਹੁਣ you know, this is the idea of being lonely and our older generation never expected this because they didn't leave their parents. But actually the first set of migrants who came here, they started this trend off because they left their parents essentially back home to come here. And then you've got to understand that if you're going to come into a Western culture, some of it is going to rub off essentially, and you know, ultimately 100 years down the line you might have a situation where nobody stays with their parents.
Tarek, I wanted to ask, from a clinical perspective, how much do you think technology's played into this as well? Because everybody's on their, you know, phones, they're on their iPads, they're watching TV, there's endless channels that we're almost forcing ourselves to go and segregate on our own as opposed to sit as a joint family.
Fabulous point. I mean, well, there's that, but also there's this constant stream of communication, constant pressure. And interesting, when I was listening to the conversation as we've been going on, I'm reminded of the fact that depression is actually the end result, if you like, of a number of other things that have happened. And anxiety and depression are effectively two ends of the same spectrum. Anxiety caused by fear, by not being quite good enough, and that's a message reinforced by social media, by technology, by, you know, role models that are doing this, that and the other, and, you know, doing amazing things. Well, I'm not so good. Cyberbullying. I mean, the list is endless, and it's constant. It's not like you can get away from it, and people are always on their phones. We all do it. I mean, even being on this program for an hour without our phones is quite an interesting experience. But the phone is constantly being used. Facebook is being used, and I think it's one of these things that actually, by having that constantly, you increase pressure, you increase anxiety, you increase fear, you increase low self-esteem. That's a huge issue for clients I've worked with previously with low self-esteem, has been this whole social media profile. And actually you increase isolation because all this is going on in your phone, in your hand, on the tube, in your bedroom, wherever you've got a phone. So it kind of stays with you. So you're constantly in touch, but actually quite isolated at the same time.
It's because you're not having, how do I put it, real communication,
Exactly
real
right.
connection.
Exactly.
Because that would help you normalise some of the things that you're thinking or
Exactly.
feeling, and that's where I was coming at it from. Of sharing your problems was done in a very different way growing up. Whereas now it just feels like, well, here you go, here's the internet, find your own solution for it. And that may not necessarily be
exactly
the right way to go about it.
Exactly. What I'd like to also, just if I may mention, is just following on from Harjap's points about the social changes in what's been going on. One of the things I did when I was a student counsellor was I did some work with the Asian community on the effects of partition on the elder people. And I have to say, this is underreported, this is understood, and a lot of people during partition went through some horrendous things, saw some of the most appalling atrocities on all sides, regardless of religion or which side of the divide you're on. A lot of people saw this, and there are a lot of people in their 70s, in their 80s, who are still today holding a lot of problems, a lot of anxiety, a lot of post-traumatic stress actually related to this. And that in itself has had an impact on their ability to relate to their children and so on. So I think there is a whole sort of almost generational depression that can happen as a result of trauma.
Talk about separation, Harpal, you can probably vouch for this. This time of year as well, families are splitting up.
Yeah.
The rates of divorce amongst people is humongous. First, we can just go through the what's happening in terms of why people are going through this, and why is it that the Christmas and New Year's period, they've got this opportunity to say, you know what, thank you, but no thanks.
I think the New Year is always seen as a fresh start. So people see, a chance to make the changes that perhaps we haven't made. Traditionally and historically, January is the busiest month for divorce lawyers.
Really?
Because, it always is. And so
Guys, you've heard that here, right?
Yeah.
And John Counsellor has mentioned this is the busiest year.
Busiest month, and January is always, and that's because over Christmas people spend time with each other, and throughout the whole year they don't. And so we often have people spending time with each other, and they get in each other's faces, and they realise, you know what, I can't stand this person. I'm better off at work. So you have.
I'm sure
dynamics,
I'm sure it's the other way around. You're either in each other's face or you're just not there.
Just
the
not
time when you're expecting to be around and have more time for each other.
Does expectation lead to depression and isolation or loneliness?
Definitely leads to disappointment, and I think that in effect, like we're talking about, the elderly have an expectation that their kids will live with them and look after them. I don't have that expectation of my kids. I doubt if anyone here has that expectation. We're the other way around. We're thinking, you know what? As soon as you're independent, off you go. I want my own space. I want my bedroom back. I want my clothes that are in the loft and in the back room and my jutnia and all that. I want them all back, and I'm going to put them in the room. I want my life back. I'm going to go gym. I don't want to drop you off at school anymore. I don't want to worry about you. You do your own stuff, and you're not bringing your kids here either every other day. And I'm not being a babysitter for them. But and look how that dynamic has changed in 30, 40 years, right? So that has just changed in over a generation. And I think one more point on the social media, which Tarek pointed out. Now there's so much social media about with the Instagram and the Facebooks. You see all of these couples pretending to be happy with the photos, even though they've got these Titanic poses, but even at home they're probably having an argument every day with their other half. But that people look at that and they get depressed because they think my life should be like that. Or you look at these perfect bodies and you could be dieting all year and not have to be anywhere near, and you think, I'm not like that. Or I haven't got muscles like that, I've been gymming all year. Or I don't have this 2.4 children, I don't have my children that don't even talk back to me nicely. So we're setting ourselves up for disappointment because in the end we're just trying to reach something that perhaps is not there, and that is what social media does. It creates a perfect picture.
Exactly.
And then we just start comparing, and the day you start comparing, you're never going to be good enough. There's always going to be someone out there who's having a better life than you. So instead of concentrating on our own life, we begin to concentrate on what others are doing, and it's a downward spiral from there.
Sangat, just to let you know, our telephone lines are now open. If you want to call in and speak to our expert panel here, or to myself, or mention your own experiences of loneliness or depression, the telephone number is on the bottom of the screen. It's 0121 543 0003. That's 0121 543 0003. Sorry, telephones on खुल चुके हैं जो देसी साननाल या सारी जो पैनल एक्सपर्ट है डिप्रेशन लोनलीनेस में गल करना चाहते हैं कोई सवाल जवाब या खुद ही हाथ बीती सुनाना चाहते सारा टेलीफोन नंबर जो है नीचे है 0121 534 0003 और तो फ़ोन कर लो तो हम दस दो किएगा Gurjit, loneliness plays a big part within our community. Is it just based around, what are the wider issues associated with loneliness?
I think there's a lot more associated with loneliness because I think it affects your confidence, your self-esteem as a person, how we've talked about how you view life, how you think people, how you react to things because you think everybody's against you. One of the things that I teach as part of my life coaching is thinking about what I call the self-talk spiral.
Okay.
So there's a spiral that goes down and it's when you know you're on a good day or a bad day because the spiral that's on its way down, think about the type of music you're listening to. Is it very depressive? What are the kind of things that you're saying to yourself? How are you kind of reacting to things? What are the foods that you're eating? Because even that's affecting
Really, food?
Food as well, because it's a form of comfort eating.
Okay.
Think of it like that. You know, if you haven't got friends, what do? You turn to food. You know, that's some of the symptoms associated with being obese, because again, it comes back down to self-confidence and hiding away from your problems. On the other spectrum of the spiral, as it goes up, you know, what does a good day look like? What are you saying to yourself? What are you wearing? Who are your friends? Who are you talking to? What kind of activities are you doing? You know, that's the contrast between understanding when you're lonely and on your own and when you're having a good day and when you're having not so good day. And the challenge we have is, we have too many bad days consecutively, that's when we begin to not do anything about it. And you know, and that's where that rut starts to kick in.
So कोई जो बंदा lonely हो या depressed हो, सबको कितना पता लगता है कि they are lonely or depressed?
तो उत्थों ही पता लगता है जब अपने मूड तो अपने अंदर how you feel. है ना? That's why I said the emotions are a huge thing. सानू दसदे आ भी ਅਸੀਂ ਅੱਜ good mood ਹੈ ਮੇਰਾ ਜਾਂ what are you feeling? ਜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਘਰ ਚ ਅਣਬਣ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਆ ਕਿੰਨੇ ਦਿਨ ਅਸੀਂ ਫੀਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ ਬੈਠ ਕਿੰਨੇ ਦਿਨ ਅਸੀਂ you know ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਵੀ ਗੱਲ ਸ਼ਕਤੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਮੰਗਾਈਏ ਤੇ ਗਾਹਾਂ ਨੂੰ move forward ਹੋਵੇ.
And you don't feel happy.
Exactly.
You don't feel happy and you don't feel content.
Yeah.
And you know you're searching for something else. It's almost like you're searching for something else and you can't find it. You're just not generally content with yourself.
Tarek, same question to you. How would you recognise if someone else in your family, your friend circle is going through loneliness or depression? What is there to see for them? How can you recognise this?
Well, it comes in many forms. Just wanted to finish off on the point about loneliness. I think loneliness has many different forms. I think there's the physical isolation of being on your own. So the point of a person living alone, not going out, not seeing other people, isolating themselves from the world potentially. But also you can be lonely in a huge group of people, and that can take many forms in terms of loneliness, social isolation. It could be that you don't have language skills. It could be that you're isolated in a difficult relationship where you have restrictions on whether you can go out or your social circle. So there's a whole loneliness is almost a huge subject in its own right. In terms of recognising depression or people feeling unhappy, it's the usual stuff. Are they very much working from what Gurjit's been saying, you know, thinking about are they having a good day, are they having a bad day, are they in a bad mood, or has this been going on for a little while? An early sign of depression is altered sleep patterns. You can have physical examples, so for example skin rashes or feeling unwell or you know, going to the toilet a lot, you know, feeling very nervous, unhappy. Generally, sort of, you would expect to see somebody perhaps isolating themselves or overcompensating and being almost trying to be overly happy and perhaps being too engaged, but when they're actually hiding something a little bit more deeper underneath. So I think the key to this is asking questions like, how are you feeling? What's happening for you? Having a cup of coffee with somebody, you can actually change a life by doing something as benign as that, because actually it's starting a process, it's starting a conversation, and it's actually getting to the bottom of what's happening rather than second guessing.
You use social media we talk social media in a negative way, but social media can have a positive influence on people as well. People, for example, watching our show on media. What other ways can positiveness come from social media as well as just working with it from there?
I use my social media and for positive stuff, to put out positive messages, to say what I feel. Recently I've put out a lot of emotional posts about how I felt regarding having children and stuff like this, and people say, well, why are you pouring your heart out on Facebook? And I said, you know what, it's better than keeping it all bottled up and then having to deal with it inside my head. So this is what essentially we do. ਅਸੀਂ ਜੋ ਸਾਡੀ ਦਿਲ ਦੀਆਂ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਆ ਬਾਹਰ ਤਾਂ ਕੱਢੀ ਦੀਆਂ ਨਹੀਂ, ਉਹ ਸਿਰ 'ਚ ਹੀ ਘੁੰਮੀ ਜਾਂਦੀਆਂ ਉਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਦਿਲ ਤਾਂ ਖਰਾਬ ਹੋਣਾ ਹੀ ਆ, ਦਿਮਾਗ ਵੀ ਖਰਾਬ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦਾ. So we need an outlet for this sort of stuff, and my social media for me is an outlet for me to, and then the messages we get back from people that, you know what, I'm going through the same thing, I went through the same thing. You don't realise until you connect with these people that how many people are, you know, in that sort of a dukhy state, and you know, and people going through a hard time and tough time, and these are people, when you look at their social media, it looks perfect, and I've sat there and thought, what's wrong with your life? You're running a brilliant life, you know. And like, no, you don't know the inside of it.
That's the role of social media, I feel, the me too of when somebody else tells their story, then they can resonate with it. And not only that, they need to respect and recognise that some of the people that are, whether they're celebrities or whether they're doing great stuff, actually there's a great story behind it, because look at the struggle they've had to go through, and nobody's immune from it. And it's almost reminding everybody that, because you know what, when we're born, we're all equal, we're all whole. But unfortunately, it's our life experiences and what we go through that give us, you know, different outcomes. And we're not all fortunate to either get married, stay married, etc. So we all put it down to, oh my God, you know, I'm the only one, and you're not the only one. There are many people out there that have gone through something similar, whether it's a disorder in food or a disorder to do mentally, physically. But we isolate ourselves and only believe it's just me. And I think that's the important message to get out today, is that you're not alone. There is a lot of help out there, and for your particular help, you know, phone in and let us help you as well.
Good point there, Mabel. If you guys need some support or some ideas, please give us a ring back. We've got an expert panel here talking about depression and loneliness. Guys, I wanted to touch base with you. We've mentioned loneliness and depression in the elderly. In our communities, what can be done for them? What can they do?
I was really interested about, again, what Gurjit said earlier about, you just touched briefly on talking about when children leave home. Actually, what I think some people may want to consider and perhaps don't realise is that life is phases, actually. And when children leave home, as we've just heard about the hooray, let's reclaim my bedroom back, brilliant. But equally, I think for people who've devoted their lives to bringing up children who've, you know, had big families, who've worked hard, and then suddenly there's the two of them left in this house, and it's these two people kind of met perhaps when they were 18, 19, 20. They're now 50 perhaps, and their last child has left. They're different people from the people they were at the age of 20. Okay. And that actually requires a whole redefinition of the relationship, actually. And it can actually be a very exciting time for people, because where they look at this and they realise that they're doing, that, you know, then we're not the same as we were, and rather than it sort of drifting along and making do, you could actually turn it into something really positive and say, let's sit down, let's think about this, and let's see what we can do. And in a way, you could almost seek therapy or counselling to say, look, we're in a new phase of life, we don't quite know what to do with it, help us, we just need some support.
We've got a call online, so Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Hello.
Hello. Yeah, I can hear you live on Sangat TV.
Hello, this is Jasper Singh from Birmingham.
Hajal Singh.
Mental health issues are a serious matter in Asian communities, but there is help out there. You've got counselling, you've got recovery colleges in the Midlands. There's about 40 recovery colleges up and down the country where you do group therapy.
All right.
Where the Asians can actually join these classes, which are all based and focused around mental health and well-being.
But Baji, first of all, thank you for ringing in and telling us about these things, and anyone who's living in the Birmingham and the Midlands areas, it's worthwhile to having a look at them. But why don't our community access these kind of services?
Pardon?
Why don't our community access these kind of services?
I think there's not much information going out through the media, the GP surgeries, or through counselling or crisis teams.
Okay. Harjap Baji, you got offices in Birmingham.
I have, yeah.
In terms of the commentary and everything there, what do you say?
I think on a personal level, I think the Asian community are a bit reluctant to ask for help and support.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head there.
Baji, what's your thoughts on that?
I think the caller's absolutely right. They see, I think you're absolutely right. They see it as a sign of weakness. So if you tell somebody there's something not right with me, then we're afraid that people will think we're weak and people will laugh at us. And we're afraid to go and get help for that reason. We see it as one as an ego thing and maybe as a pride maybe thing, but we also like to think, actually, there's nothing wrong with me. God, there's nothing wrong with me that I can't get over. And we tell ourselves, I do it to myself sometimes, and man up, bandaban. And I say it to quite a few people, bandaban. I've seen people try to man up, and I've seen them in pieces at their attempt to try and hide everything and deal with everything. And lack of information is another thing. So our community aren't aware of the services available to them. Slowly it's getting out there. It should do with a lot of the doctors are Asian, a lot of the consultants are Asian. So, I mean, the doctors should signpost it. But once again, we don't go to our doctor to tell him, look, there's something not quite right with me up here. And we see it because we don't want to be seen as somebody with a defect. And that's how we view illness, as a defect. I'll give you an example. When we're looking for people to get married to, or rishte for our brothers and sisters, our children, how do we describe people who have mental illnesses? We describe well, we don't even say it. We say siddaya, thoda slower, thoda chalaya, right? When really it's not siddha at all. It's probably the most complex person out there. We try and hide this mental illness, and then we say or it's wrong, right? So we already taint these people. We see it as a bad thing. It's seen as something's not right. So we try and hide it. This is the stuff that we try and do as a community, and it's not good.
And there's also the other extreme of that. Of some people, when they hear that label, you might go back to when you're a child. If you've been told you're slow or you're not great or what have you, you stick with that label and you become a victim to it yourself.
Exactly.
And nobody's told you to have that label, but you convince yourself. And that's the harder thing when as people get older, and again, clients that come are kind of going, I can let go of that label. Yeah, you can let go of that label, and how liberating it is.
Can I just spit Jazz? Can I just ask? Is he still with
Jazz,
us?
thank you much for ringing in. Awareness is fantastic.
All right, sorry. I was just going to ask if he'd actually accessed any of the services there. It would be quite interesting to know.
It seems like the awareness is quite key.
Yeah.
But people in this day and age will probably go to colleges and stuff if they're aware. But I do want to touch with you in terms of the older generation who going to a college or seeking help, it's not easy for them. What advice would either one of you guys here give to the older generation who are going through loneliness, they're going through depression, especially in this Christmas period? What can they do?
I would say देखो जिन्ने भी सियाने हैं है ना तुसी अपने आप को कल्ले ना फ्री करो तुसी दिल दियां गल्लां अपने खोल के करो find someone to have a chat with, someone your age, doesn't have to be your age, it can be younger, can be तुसी बाहर जाके दुनिया देखो, go and see the activities, तुसी बथेरा काम कीता तुसी न्याणे सेट करते हो ਇਹ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਿ ਹੁਣ ਘਰ ਦੇ ਚਾਰ ਦੀਵਾਰੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੀ ਰਹਿਣਾ ਹੋਵਰ ਕੇ ਬਾਹਰ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਦੇਖੋ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਕਿੱਥੇ ਆ ਕਿੱਥੇ ਨਹੀਂ go out, do the things, be active, don't just sit there at home. And I know it's gonna but don't sit there and watch TV all day, right?
Sit there watching TV.
Don't do that. Get out, get out side ਬਾਹਰ ਨਿਕਲੋ ਆਪਣੇ ਦਿਲ ਦੀਆਂ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਕਰੋ ਹੁਣ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਇੰਜੋਏ ਕਰਨ ਦਾ ਟਾਈਮ ਆਇਆ ਹੁਣ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਸਿਹਤ ਚੱਲਦੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਗੋਡੇ ਚੱਲਦੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁਣ ਕੀ ਇੰਜੋਏ ਕਰਨਾ ਕੁਝ ਪਚਦਾ ਨਹੀਂ but enjoy it to what extent you can. ਇਹਦਾ ਮਤਲਬ ਇਹ ਨਹੀਂ ਜੇ ਕੁਝ ਜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਿਆਣੇ ਹੋ ਗਏ that's it. You're not sitting there waiting to die. It's not God's waiting room, we often call it, right? So you're not sitting there waiting to die, and you just get that with a lot of people that or just hum ਜਾਂਦੇ ਆ ਸਿਆਣੇ they just sit there and even a ਗੱਲਾਂ ਲੈ ਹੁਣ ਕੀ ਕਰਨਾ ਹੁਣ ਤਾਂ ਸਿਆਣੇ ਹੋ ਗਏ ਹੁਣ ਤਾਂ ਰੱਬ ਲੈ ਹੀ ਜਾਵੇ ਇਹ ਰੱਬ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਲੈ ਜਾਵੇ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਜਾਣਾ ਰੱਬ ਨੇ go out and do what you need to do.
ਹਾਂਜੀ.
And that's really important. Change your mindset as well. I think change your mindset. दुनिया में देखो कि कितने बार बैठी कितने.
Yeah, and that's why I think it's important for the elderly to think about now. There's tour operators out there that are in our field, Asian tour operators that are happy to go out there and take them to, whether it's to go and see the Banj Duct in India, whether it's to tour other countries. There's multiple ways now to spend your time and your hard-earned money on yourself. The Gurdwara and their own services here. You have everybody that gets together at the Gurdwara for the Tuesday or the Thursday gathering. What is that doing? What
so it's about looking into community, what community activities are there and everything there. One thing that's quite close to my heart is drugs and alcohol. And this period where I see Punjabi viaah te jande hai, there's more alcohol, there's Jack Daniels there's more alcohol than Coke on table. What can we do for those who suffered long term for drugs and alcohol, and because of that, and Christmas time you're drinking more alcohol and doing whatever you're doing, Bhangal you're doing. What advice or what thoughts can we give to those? Gurjit? You're nodding your head profusely saying that you've got something going on there.
No, I was just going to say, look, I think everything's in moderation. ਹਨਾ ਹੁਣ ਇਹ ਤਾਂ ਹੈਗਾ ਵੀ ਚੱਲ ਛੁੱਟੀਆਂ ਆਈਆਂ ਥੋੜ੍ਹਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਫੈਮਿਲੀ ਨਾਲ ਵੀ ਟਾਈਮ ਸਪੈਂਡ ਕਰਨਾ ਰਿਸ਼ਤੇਦਾਰ ਆਉਂਦੇ ਆ ਮੈਂ ਸਮਝ ਸਕਦੀ ਹਾਂ ਵੀ ਇਕੱਠੇ ਤਾਂ ਕਦੇ ਕਦੇ ਕੋਈ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਆ but it comes down to moderation ਵੀ ਆਪਣੀ ਸਿਹਤ ਲਈ ਕੀ ਠੀਕ ਆ and at the end of the day how regular is it because only you know whether it's now got worse or it's better or it's not getting any better. Only last week I had a call from a lovely auntie who reached out and said help me, I've got a family member not in control anymore. They said 1st of January, they've been drinking like water, up until that point. Now it's 1st of January and actually they're struggling even more so. So we've referred them back to, there are other organisations out there. I had swapped on.
And that's huge because these are very, very specific 12-step programs. There's a whole universe of support for people with drug and alcohol problems. The initial part is accepting that you've got a problem. That's the key thing, isn't it? But I don't think I think it's important that the viewers understand that when somebody has a severe alcohol problem, it is very specialist support. It's not a cup of tea and a chat. It's going to need long-term structured therapy, and it's going to need medical support as well with things like stopping things like the shakes and stuff in the morning, so you can need things like chlordiazepam epoxide and stuff, so you'll need medication alongside it. So
alcohol is a depressant. A lot of people think it's a stimulant, but look, you see that I had a drink yesterday because I was in a happy mood, but today I can feel it. I can feel the effects of it, and it's actually a downer. And I won't feel better now until about Wednesday. Yeah,
so that's about a couple of days, isn't it?
Yeah, it takes a couple of days to get out. Look, it's all they can see. Sharp, you get kosher in there, or maybe kosher in there for a little bit period, of a couple of hours. But the next day, you don't feel that good, and it is definitely a depressant. And the other thing which Gurjit said, there is a big problem, and I've been noticing for the last couple of years, of Asian women. And especially now, Punjabi Asian women drinking.
I know about Asian men and stuff.
No, Asian women, and there's a big
idea.
And from between the 30s and about the 30 to 45 age group, BBR are addicted to alcohol. So there are a lot of cases that I've personally had people walk into the office and say, "Look, Harjap, you had that expert on about talking about alcohol the other week. Here's my daughter, and she needs help, and it is specialist help. It is specialist help. It's not something that is cured overnight with a cup of tea. It is specialist medicine, specialist therapy. But there's a big problem, and that ultimately intertwines itself with depression and loneliness. And a lot of this is intertwined. There's massive drug use in the Asian community, in the Punjabi community.
Quite hidden as well, isn't it?
It's weddings in the toilets. So let's not mince our words. I go to weddings. I see people use it in the toilets, and use drugs in the toilets to give themselves a kick at the wedding. It's a wedding. You're not in Ibiza, we're not at Magaluf, we're not at clubbing, but there is a problem of drug abuse in our community.
You up.
तो तैनू तो नहीं हो गई सारी गल्लां सुन के
Gurjit, as a woman, how's that? Oh, I'm still in shock. I'm still processing it. How's it for you as women taking drugs and alcohol?
It hasn't surprised me. Not a lot surprises me these days because it's all possible. There's no restriction anymore. Once upon a time it was just guys that went out. Now women go out. We know it's got predominantly more so as the generations have moved on, and therefore drinking is almost seen as part of the culture in the way that the men saw it back in those days. But to your point, yes, I know there is a number of ladies that are now reaching out to organisations for various reasons, and it could be either to do with some of the things we talked about. Being isolated at home, being lonely in their marriage, a career that's not fulfilling them, they're not able to meet their partner, family stresses, you're not getting married, or again other challenges. So there's a number of reasons why girls get together and potentially do that. But as to Tarek's point, there's understanding of when it's just moderate and manageable to when it's actually more of a regular thing where you genuinely need help. Because you still hear again, I will say it out there as easily as you've said it, of if drugs are being taken in the toilets, men are still having affairs, and that has a mental effect that it's just not been brought out, for other ways that people deal with their problems.
It's an interesting talk about affairs because, as you said, this is a very rich time where affairs will actually happen.
Every day, every day. No time is right for an affair.
It's something that we don't instigate here on the mental health matters, but it's this understanding of culture, how we're moving, because we are getting into a culture where we're more lonely. Before we used to go out and do certain things.
One more topic I think I've noticed, bereavement. So family bereavement, especially with boys losing their mothers, and I find that's a starting point for them maybe to turn to alcohol or to drugs, and girls with their fathers. So girls are very attached to their fathers. That when you've lost a loved one, it's a very sensitive time. You're very vulnerable, right? You've lost that protecting hand over your head, mum and dad.
Over the Christmas time as well.
And I've got a friend, and he lost his mum during the Christmas time period a few years ago, and he just never celebrates Christmas. So he doesn't celebrate Christmas because it reminds him of that time. You know, to sit at home and, you know, I call it a form of depression, and he identifies it himself. He goes, Harjap, I think I'm depressed. And I said, yeah, you probably are, because, you know, you have that Christmas reminds you of that time. And these sort of things, they do play on people, and bereavement is a big thing, and we don't handle bereavement well.
Absolutely. And ਜਦੋਂ ਅੱਗੇ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਸੀ ਵੀ ਚੱਲ, you know, you'd sit and cry, you do massage with your family around you, and, you know, if we take the non-Asian culture, it's completely opposite. They celebrate life. You know, how many of them have wakes after the funeral's been done, and they see, you know, somebody's life as something completely different, or celebrate their life for what they've achieved. We still linger it on for many years for the right reasons. I'm not saying for the wrong reasons, and then it's harder for people as you don't have the support around you.
And of source we on WhatsApp they on up here.
Like that source on WhatsApp?
Yeah, this is what people do. They leave a WhatsApp voice note, or they do an of source on the phone. They haven't got time to come round like the olden days. Come round, pay your respects, and that, you know. And a lot of people dagante ni jande, and so this is the culture change, and it's upsetting, and people don't take time out because people haven't got time. People have got busy lifestyles, and they look for new kicks. So as the kicks,
that's the point.
They look for new kicks. So for alcohol used to do it first. Now it doesn't. Drugs do it first. Then it's other stuff. It will ultimately end the latest kick. That's what we will.
That's exactly it. And the thing is, I would say also that you.
Tarek, Gurjit got cut off earlier. He's back on the phone now, and he wants to talk to you about Gurjit Singh. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Hello. Hello, is it Gurjit Singh?
I think I missed your call when I came on the Gurjit Singh.
Gurjit Singh.
Gurjit, hi, good evening.
More information on the recovery club.
Yes, please. What would be great would be, I just really would like to understand a little bit more about your experience of this. Have you actually accessed this service, and what's actually going on over there in the Midlands? It'd be really useful perhaps to know.
I'm actually a peer support at one of the recovery colleges.
Oh, awesome. Yep.
And all the courses that are available at the recovery college are geared around mental health services, and the courses are created by experts by experienced and professionals. So they're all geared around confidence building, anxiety, everything.
So it's covering off quite a lot of topics we mentioned here today.
Thank you.
There might be a case where Gurjit Singh, if you can leave your details with our producers behind the thing, and then we can share the data either amongst ourselves or on the on our website from there, to signposting from there. Tarek, sorry.
Yeah, no. Just following on from what's been said already, alcohol and drugs are actually, in a strange way, a solution. In some ways, for some people, it's a way out, and it's effective. So we're looking at cause and effect. So what we actually see with alcohol and drug abuse or extramarital affairs or whatever is that there's something deep inside that's not working. It's not right. There's a dissatisfaction, disconnect with the world. So actually, they self-medicate with alcohol, with drugs, and actually create a whole new set of problems with family, with being able to relate to other people, with their relationship with drugs, with alcohol, and actually, in a way, you create a whole new landscape, which actually it makes it even worse. Whereas, in some ways, and when people go for formal therapy for alcoholism and drug addiction, you've actually got to tear away these layers of the actual addiction before you actually begin to the real work of why did we get here in the first place. and that's quite
So we're
crucial.
looking at the fruits of the tree and then going to the branch, then going
Effectively,
to
getting them down to the root, and that's
Yeah.
it. And what you may find is there's been some abuse, there's been some low self-esteem. There's usually a group of beliefs, of behaviours that are geared usually around low self-esteem, possibly abuse, possibly family dysfunction, whatever it is. There's something, and often it's in early years. There's a whole network of stuff that needs to be explored.
And the one word that comes to me, Tarek, when you say that, well, where does it not come from?
Yeah.
It is the ultimate word,
Yeah.
which is if there was love,
Yeah.
je pyar hunda,
Yeah.
te sab kuch hunda.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what it comes down
Yeah.
to, that if you were loved or felt loved, belonged in your family, belonged with your loved one, you wouldn't necessarily go about doing
That's
these
right.
things. And what we're seeing, whether it's drugs, alcohol, etc., or even, unfortunately, illnesses, they're a disease in our own bodies because we're uncomfortable with what's happening. And these are just symptoms. What you see on the outside are just symptoms. The real root of the problem, as you called it out, is deep within.
Yeah.
I think the self-esteem is a huge
It's a massive
problem.
issue.
And I'll tell you where that comes from, where I think it comes from. In the Asian community, we're very quick to compare our kids.
Yeah.
I see it at school when I go and drop my little one off at school. She's only 6. All the parents are well into it. This. I've got tutoring. I want to do this. I want to do that. And I'm sitting there. God, I'm just waiting for Friday. See if I can get through till Friday. And it's get spent years. And I'm sure we've all had it. All of our friends have done it.
Sure.
Ever at school, ਉਹ ਫਲਾਣੇ ਦਾ ਮੁੰਡਾ ਦੇਖ ਉਹ ਕਿੰਨਾ ਚੁਸਤਿਆ ਭਰਾਈ ਨੂੰ ਤੇਰੇ ਮਾਰਕ ਘੱਟ ਆਏ ਆ and this we have ਉਹ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਬਣਿਆ ਤੂੰ ਵੀ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਬਣ ਤੂੰ ਸਰਜਨ ਬਣ
If you need to be a doctor, a pharmacist, a dentist, an accountant, or a lawyer.
I wish my parents had that for me. Anyway, we've got a call for it. Hanji, Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Hello? Hanji. Hanji.
Hello, Hanji. कौन बोल रहे जी?
Harpal बोल रहे. This is live on.
Harpal.
Hanji.
Harpal Singh, Hanji.
Hanji, that's Ji.
Very nice to talk to you.
Thank you. Pleasure is all mine.
You are a very good doctor.
I'm not a doctor. The doctor's over
Very
here.
good presenter.
Thank you, sir. Hanji, that's Ji. How can we?
मैं पता ही गल पूछनी थी मेरा एक फ्रेंड है
हाँ जी।
दोस्त ते वो ना वो थोड़ा अजीब सा बिहेव करता सारे सामने ते वो सारे ਉਹਨੂੰ ਨਾ ਇਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੇਖਦੇ ਕਿ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਛੋਟਾ ਬੰਦਾ ਹੈ ਉਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਅਸੀਂ ਗੱਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਨੀ ਤੇ ਇਹਦੇ ਕੋਲ ਦੂਰ ਹੋ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਨਾ ਉਹ ਕੀ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਜਦੋਂ ਧੁੱਪ ਪੈਂਦੀ ਹੈ
Hanji.
ਜੋ ਮੋਟੇ ਮੋਟੇ ਕੋਟ ਪਾ ਕੇ ਆਉਂਦਾ ਹੈ ਜਦੋਂ ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰੇ ਬੰਦਾ ਅਸੀਂ ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰੇ ਬੰਦੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਨੰਦਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਸਾਰੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਕਿ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਕੁਝ ਗੱਲ ਹੈਗਾ ਇਸ ਬੰਦੇ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਤੇ ਨਾ ਉਹ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਕਿੰਨਾ ਉਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦਾ ਹੈ ਅਸੀਂ ਫਰੈਂਡ ਬਣ ਗਿਆ ਤੇ he finds it very hard to talk to people in the society.
Okay.
And there have been people that have tried to speak to him, but he doesn't want to go.
Could you?
ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ ਜੀ ਭਾਜੀ ਪਤਾ ਕੀ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਆ ਅਸੀਂ ਇਹ ਸਟ੍ਰੈਟਜੀ ਕਰ ਲੈਂਦੇ ਆ ਵੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਇਨਵਿਜ਼ੀਬਲ ਆ that be invisible ਆ ਉਹਦੀ limiting belief it could be I'm not saying it is maybe I'm invisible ਵੀ ਮੈਂ ਕੋਟ ਪਾ ਕੇ ਵੀ ਮੈਂ ਲੁਕੋ ਸਕਦਾ ਆਪਣੇ ਆਪ ਨੂੰ ਮੈਂ ਕਿਸੇ ਕੋ ਗੱਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਨੀ so that's a strategy
ਕੋਟ ਪਾਉਂਦਾ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਵਿੰਟੇਜ ਬਣਾਉਣਾ ਪੈਂਦਾ ਹੈ
ਨਹੀਂ ਪਤਾ ਕੀ ਹੈ what Gurjit's trying to say ਹੈ ਕਿ ਵੀ ਕਦੀ we try to be invisible could be not be recognized could be ਲੁਕ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਖਾਸ ਕਰ ਜੋ ਅਸੀਂ ਕੋਈ ਕਾਮਨ ਪਲੇਸ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਾਏ ਉੱਥੇ ਫਿਰ ਬੰਦੇ ਨੂੰ it's quite obvious ਕਿ ਵੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਹੈਗੇ ਜਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗੇ and if you've got
Harpal Singh ਜੀ ਥੋੜਾ ਉੱਚੀ ਬੋਲੋ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਸੁਣਦਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਮੈਨੂੰ
yeah it's just working on could be what Gurjit's saying is about being invisible ਕਿਸੇ ਕੋਈ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਦੇਖੇ ਨਾ ਸਭ ਪਛਾਣੇ ਨਾ ਅਸੀਂ ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰੇ ਜਾਈਏ ਮੱਥਾ ਟੇਕੇ ਲੰਗਰ ਛਕੇ ਘਰ ਜਾਈਏ ਕੋਈ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਗੱਲ ਨਾ ਕਰੇ ਕੋਈ ਕੁਛ ਨਾ ਕਰੇ and
that's what I'm saying that ਆਪਾਂ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਸਟ੍ਰੈਟਜੀ ਰਹਿੰਦੇ ਵੀ ਮੇਰੇ ਕੋਈ ਵੱਲ ਦੇਖੇ ਨਾ ਮੇਰੇ ਵੱਲ ਕੋਈ ਗੱਲ ਨਾ ਕਰੇ ਤਾਂ ਉਹ ਆਪਣੇ ਆਪ ਨੂੰ ਲੁਕਾਉਂਦੇ ਆ ਮੈਂ ਵੀ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਕਰਾਂ ਵੀ ਮੈਂ
ਉਹ ਪਤਾ ਕੀ ਜਦੋਂ ਉਹ ਕੋਈ ਆਂਦਾ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਦਾਲਾ ਲੈ ਲਓ ਪ੍ਰਸ਼ਾਦਾ ਲੈ ਲਓ ਉਹ ਕਦੇ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਿ ਹਾਂਜੀ ਬਸ ਉਹ ਪਾਈ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਆ ਉਹ ਕੁਝ ਕਰਦਾ ਨਹੀਂ
could you sorry could you
ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਭਾਜੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਠੀਕ ਹੋ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਬਸ
ਚਰਨਜੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਚਰਨਜੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ
ਮੇਰੇ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲ ਕਰ ਮੇਰੇ ਨਾਲ ਇੱਕ ਹੋਰ ਸਾਡਾ ਇੱਕ ਫਰੈਂਡ ਹੈਗਾ ਪਰਲਾ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਪਰਲਾ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦਾ ਤੇ ਮੇਰੇ ਨਾਲ
Chanji, you've raised a very, very interesting topic, and what we can do is if you can ring back after the show and
Haji.
it may be a case where we can do some mental health work with you guys in Corona Gurdwara and actually highlight certain problems and work with the Sangat in that way. So,
ਹਰਪਾਲ ਭਾਜੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਆਪਣਾ ਨੰਬਰ ਦੇ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ ਮੈਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਫੋਨ ਕਰਦਾ
Paji, what you can do is short about us after 6 and I'll give us a ring back and I'll talk to you
Haji.
directly from there. Sorry, sorry, not 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock.
After 7.
So take care, if you could ring after the show and we'll talk to you from there.
So say that's
Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
to say that's a reason why depression and loneliness gets unnoticed sometimes, because people do run that strategy of I'll make myself invisible, so when I go out and go socially with friends and family, they're the ones that are probably the quiet ones in the corner, and we don't know therefore whether that's their personality or whether they're actually going through something to behave like that. And I think only those close to them will know that hang on a minute, they're normally quite sociable or they say something.
Another important point, if you notice on the call, and this is how our community's reaction is to mental health issues. On Randil, Bulabulonani. So Koyano Blondani, there's a leave him in there, right? No one talks to him. One guy talks to him, found out actually he's alright.
Yeah.
He's quite a good guy. If you spoke to him, if you take time out.
That's a good
So instead of signposting it and saying, ਪੁੱਤ ਤੈਨੂੰ ਕੀ ਹੋਇਆ ਦੱਸ, ਤੈਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਤਕਲੀਫ ਤਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ, ਤੈਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਲੋੜ ਤਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ, ਤੈਨੂੰ ਕਿਤੇ ਨੰਬਰ ਦਿੰਨੇ ਆ, ਤੈਨੂੰ ਕਿਤੇ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਆ, ਅਸੀਂ ਡਰ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਆ ਕਿ ਨਹੀਂ ਉਹਦੇ ਕੋਲ ਕੋਈ ਬਿਮਾਰੀ ਨਾ ਹੋਵੇ, ਸਾਨੂੰ ਨਾ ਲੱਗ ਜਾਵੇ।
ਹਾਂਜੀ,
ਇਹਨੂੰ ਬੁਲਾਉਣਾ ਨਹੀਂ, ਇਹ ਪਤਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਇਹ ਪਾਗਲ ਹੈ, ਸਾਨੂੰ ਕੀ ਕਰ ਦੂ, ਹੈ ਨਾ, ਇਹ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਗਾਲਾਂ ਕੱਢ ਦੂ ਚਾਰ ਜਾਂ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਕੁੱਟੂਗਾ ਮਾਰੂਗਾ। Well, it's really that's a cry for help.
Yeah, it
so
is.
It's a cry for help, and if it's not being recognised and dealt with, you know, in our largest places where our largest congregations get together and the community gets together every Sunday, then this is a failing.
So what can our guys do more?
They can signpost people, they can talk to people, they can say, right, keep problem they can have a panel of experts on their list and say, right, I'm going to refer this person here.
That's a good point here, is having a list of experts in the area.
But having someone first to say, right, they can have a liaison officer, they can have somebody like this, they can have an outreach worker. So, you know, why can't Gurdwara have counsellors? You know, we
notice boards with numbers on, or people in the local area to contact.
Koi benti hai ki for those Gurdwaras who are suffering from people who've got mental issues, if you guys can actually just get some sort of notice board out there saying our numbers are, if you're feeling this, give these guys a ring, it will help. Any little help in our communication, or have someone who is a referral point, or someone who actually can talk to these people and say, you know what, that's okay problem hai, because a problem shared is a problem solved.
Essentially, Gurdwaras traditionally were centres of education. They were learning centres. So Guruji and they opened Gurdwaras, and they need to become that again. Information needs to be there. They need to help people who walk through their doors. Not everyone who's going to walk through the door is going to ask for help. It's up to us to recognise it. And we need to recognise these things. And we recognise the homeless, we need to recognise the people who are addicts, we need to recognise the people who have mental health problems, and we need to offer solutions. And you can recognise and isolate him and tell everyone else, oh, they're going to but instead
that's quite backward thinking, because in our community we've got so many
segregation.
We've got so many things where our Gurujis have gone to help those who are affected the most.
Yeah.
And yet we're contradicting. And mental health is one of those things, no one's written on this. It doesn't mean that you've got to male or female, black, blue, pink, young, old. It can affect you at any time.
So you can't see it from looking at someone's face that they've got a mental health illness. It's not noticeable.
I'd also say, actually, just as an aside, there are Gurdwaras don't work in isolation. Quite often you'll find that the leaders of the Gurdwara actually are part of a multi-faith setup in a local area. So don't reinvent the wheel. There'll be Church of England outreach programs, there'll be Jewish outreach programs, there'll be Muslim outreach programs. Benchmark and learn from each other, and maybe even coordinate.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Hajal, Baji, we come to end of the show. Just a few words of wisdoms for you.
I realise that people have got problems. Only help karo. rather than कि उन्होंने निंदा करो, उन्हों दा फायदा उठाओ. And the main thing is गल करो एक दूसरे नाल, कल्ले ना समझो एक दूसरे नाल.
विचार.
Yeah, अपने आप नाल गल करो. Don't be lonely. That's it really, and just try and stay active. Try and stay positive. You know, there's things going on in your life. It's zindagi hai ups and downs. It happens to us. It happens to the best of us. No one's got a perfect life. किसी की कोई life perfect नहीं है. तो अपना मदद लो. इच कोई शर्म वाली गल नहीं. And इन्हों पहचानो बीमारी
We've got one more call who wants to come through. Haji, वाहिगुरू जी का खालसा, वाहिगुरू जी की फतेह.
वाहिगुरू जी का खालसा, वाहिगुरू जी की फतेह.
Haji, that's Suji. You're live on Sangat TV, Mental Health Matters.
Hi. Yeah, I just wanted to make a point of what you mentioned with regards to the Gurdwaras taking on board, bringing in counsellors, and that doesn't help. That's not really been happening at the moment, and I think we've heard a lot about people trying to do that and introduce that into Gurdwaras, but nobody's really taking that on board.
So, what do you think the problem is here? Why isn't this being?
Sorry?
Why aren't the Gurdwaras taking on people to help with mental health issues? What's the reason for it?
Sorry, say that again.
What's the reasons for Gurdwara? What's the reason for
Well,
Gurdwara in mental health?
it's there's the committees, committee board.
It's very good point.
And
Very good point here raised is we're talking quite a lot. There's quite a lot of stuff going on here, but there's not actually anything happening.
I think Gurdwaras feel that it's not their place, and they think a lot of them think ऐसी की लेना इन्हें करके कि तुसी आओ इत्थे अपना पाठ करो, सिमरन करो, and pray and then go home. I think essentially that's the way Gurdwaras are run. Also, they seem to have other priorities. So the priorities are make big buildings, buy land, have elections, expensive elections, waste a couple of $100,000 on that every time.
problem, and they don't.
Yeah, that's
They
the
don't help
priority.
the communities.
Yeah, the priority is not to help people. We have got some progressive Gurdwaras. We've opened up nurseries. Yeah, you got nursery centres and sports centres and youth clubs. But until you get some young progressive people and professionals on these committee boards to make the changes, we're not going to see that. And we've still got the same people in charge doing the same thing that they did 40 years ago. So they haven't moved with the times.
A massive thank you for the caller calling, and thank you very much and highlighting the point. Tarek, got less than 30 seconds, so
Less than 30, depression less than 30 seconds.
just
Very simple. Life is a journey, and we're in different phases of life as we go through it, and we need to adjust and recognise as those phases come along and work with our own mental well-being to adapt to those things. Seek help. There's plenty of help out there, and try and talk to other people. I'm very cynical I've got a healthy cynicism around social media, and I just think having a cup of coffee with somebody and asking them if they're okay is the start of a great relationship.
Let me just add to Tarek's point, it's about connecting with people.
Yeah.
People see, reach out, Sadi Madad level, Sangat TV no phone karo, you can get hold of Harpal Baji, myself, and of course our expert panels, and we'll try and get you some best help that we possibly can. And most importantly, as I say, get out and try and connect with people.
Guys, want to say we come to the end of our show, Mental Health Matters, our Christmas edition. I want to say a big thank you to the callers who rang in today. We also want to say a big thank you to the callers who didn't come off on show but talked to us. Big thank you to our panel, Mr. Tarek and Hajal, for coming and spending time.
Pleasure.
Wasn't too bad, was it?
Good, it worked.
Thank you to Gurjit. Thank you to the guys behind us. We just want to say Mental Health Matters, we might be starting a second series soon, but we need Sangat's support. So if anyone wants to sponsor the second series of Mental Health Matters, please could you contact us, contact the show or contact me directly, and hopefully we're soon bringing in Mental Health Matters and hopefully bringing these guys back on and having another discussion. So thank you to you guys watching at home, and until next time,
Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.